Hello, anyone who's out there watching. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're here on Google Plus, hopefully a couple people will come on very soon. I am Candice Harper Love Coach, and I am so happy that you're here. Normally, what I would be doing is terrace talk, and I would be out on the terrace, but I did some sound checks and some technical checks, and it just wasn't going to work to be out on the terrace. The signal strength wasn't great, and the sound wasn't great. So we're going to be inside. We're going to be at my lovely desk. I hear a little bit of feedback from the YouTube. So anyway, I'm so glad that you're here. Like I said, I'm glad that you've joined me. I'm going to give, some more time, a few more minutes for people to come in, sort of trickle in. So I see that we have one viewer. Now I'm just going to start out giving a little bit of a rundown of what I'm going to be telling you about tonight, what we're going to be doing on this webinar tonight. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, how I became a love coach, why I'm here, how I'm here, all that good stuff. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the problems of being single and the problems of, just trying to get through this single life and all of that good stuff. And then we're going to talk about solutions and my 4-part transformation to being able to create the love life that you desire and deserve, and to get out of the space of being the boss super bitch and knowing how to transfer your power in a way that works for creating love and having a great love life. And then after that, there will be a Q&A session if people have joined in and they might have questions, which would be really great. So I will answer questions live. And then, I'll tell you if you want to work with me, then we'll figure that out, near the end. But just to get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Candice Harper Love Coach. And the way I became Candice Harper Love Coach is interesting because it really is my life's calling. Like, I actually have lived my life in a way, when I look back on it, that ultimately this was going to be my destiny. I've always been the advice giver. I've always been one who was somewhat obsessed about love, interested in love, interested in how people get together in relationships, how that works. And so this is how I came to this. And I do believe that our purpose is where our passions and our challenges meet. So my passion is connecting with people, talking to people, communicating, teaching, all of that good stuff. And my challenges throughout my whole adult life, even though I've always been obsessed with love, were always love and relationships and commitment for a myriad of reasons. So, I've made a lot of mistakes in the hopes that you won't have to. And, career-wise, I used to be a television art director. And the last show I worked on was the Wendy Williams show. And it was a lot of fun. But I always knew during that time that there was something bigger for me. There was something more out there that I wanted to do. And apparently I wasn't the only one who knew that, because I ended up getting laid off, which sounds like not a good thing, but it ended up being the greatest thing that could ever happen to me. I got to find out what is really important to me. And so, my entire life, like I said, I had struggled through relationships, starting with a 10-year relationship in my 20s, that when it ended, I was completely devastated. And then it was followed by a very long experimental phase where I dated all different types of men and women. And, I was just basically trying to figure out who I was in the space of romance. So then finally, while I was still working as an art director, I made the decision to get really serious about getting married. And that wasn't until my late 30s, which a lot of people will tell you that that's too late, which is absolutely untrue. So at the time, I had a lot of made up stories in my head based on my past experiences with romance. I had trust issues. I had the model of my parents' relationship, which, wasn't what I would want. And I had, romance novels, movies, a lot of crap that, we all have that ends up amounting to having nothing. Because it's all just past stuff that's informing nothing. Because just because things happen in the past doesn't mean that they're going to happen in the future unless we bring them into the future. So mainly, everything that I had experienced in my life was basically just a foundation for making a lot of assumptions, which is true for all of us. And so I thought that commitment was something that you had to trick a man into. I also had a belief about men being mentally and emotionally weak. I felt that if I didn't take the reins, then nothing would happen in relationships. I mean, there's just a lot of things that informed that for me, and that I had to transform in order to actually have a real connection, which I do now. So, being the super independent, unstoppable, get what I want kind of girl that I was, I basically over controlled my way through several situations. And I was never really all that vulnerable or authentic, just kind of bossy and demanding. And I had convinced myself that sex was true intimacy, right? So my experience was that I would get into these entanglements with guys who were just kind of along for the ride and convince myself that I was devoting my whole heart and soul, when really all I was devoting was my ability to control and, sexual interaction. And if you've ever been there, you know that that is not the way to intimacy and connection. So interestingly, after training to become a life coach and getting further and further into the world of transformation and how I could affect change in my life just by changing my thought process, I began to apply it to my love life. Then I began to study how emotional intelligence can have a huge impact on how we experience our love lives. I was having breakthrough after breakthrough for why my old ways of doing things were not bringing me the results that I wanted. Really, I was so dead set on having like this amazing love life and this love of a lifetime, is that the biggest lesson that I got was that my own sense of myself and my perception of other people was so hypercritical and fearful and tough that it would have been impossible to let anybody in. So, that inner voice that drove me to keep going in my career and whipping me to the next level was the same judge and jury who would get angry every time a man didn't show up the way that I wanted him to. Or it would be the same me that would make plans and expect men that I was dating to keep them. The sad truth is that it just didn't work. It didn't work to be bossing people around and, telling men what to do and, being regimented in what I expected as far as dating, my dating life. It worked in work. It worked in business to an extent, but it did not work in relationships. So it's not about getting rid of that part of you, because that part of you is very important. That part of you is probably what has you where you are in your career. That part of you is probably what has grown you, to a level of success. It might be what makes you money. That part of you is valid and it's valuable. And it's not about getting rid of that part of you. It's about understanding how to harness the same energy that fuels that part of you and just use it in a different way and actually develop that other part of you that is more of a beer rather than a doer, and maybe a little bit softer and a little easier to kind of get along with, a little more flexible with a little bit more flow. So how do you do that? So, here's the thing. How do you even know that that's the issue? Well, if you're experiencing certain problems, you can tell that's the issue. Like if your commitment phobia comes up a lot for you and the guys that you're dating. If that's something that's a running theme within your dating life, you can almost guarantee that part of that is, what your beliefs are, your thinking, and whether you're coming with a controlling kind of, forcible way of being. And if you're suffering the consequences of your dating past, like if you have an inability to trust, a story about having been abused, etc., your way of sort of like protecting yourself is usually through control and through, making sure that you're the one who's in charge and you're the one dictating. And it's not causing any kind of connection. It's just keeping you safe from whatever it is you're afraid of. So if you're having a lot of frustration from dating and meeting guys and you're just not able to connect, that could be a sign that, you're dealing with this issue of bringing your boss bitch into your dating life. Are you avoiding dating altogether? And underneath it all, are you harboring what is really a fear of being old and alone? Which is completely understandable. And it's not your fault. We live in a culture that, kind of dictates and makes us believe certain things about our age and where we are in life and where we're supposed to be and all of those things. And, a lot of times fear of the future, as useless as it is, sometimes it can be very pervasive in how we make decisions in our relationships, right? So I personally have experienced all of these things. Most of the clients that I've worked with have experienced all of these things. And the good news is that that's not the way it has to be. The very thing that has you thinking these thoughts, it's also what keeps you single. It's like this crazy catch-22. Like this fear of being old and alone or old and lonely can have us just very desperate and attached to the people that we date, to how our dating life goes, to needing to see it be a certain way. And it's that behavior that actually keeps anyone from being able to get close to us, and you know, makes us go crazy pants and all of that stuff. So what is the solution? Like I say, in order to have the quality love you really want, you don't have to settle, but you do have to be willing to transform. And the one thing that is true of all of my clients is that they are definitely powerhouses. However, the constant complaint is that too often they are taking the reins of the relationship, and whether it's been a few dates or, you know, months or even years of being together, they find themselves in the role of mother, caretaker, the fixer, you know, the one who's sort of pursuing the relationship rather than, you know, being pursued. And if you've ever been in that situation where you're the pursuer and the man is complacent, you know how frustrating that can be. It's the constant wondering if he's into it, second guessing yourself. You know, I mentioned it before, you know, feeling disappointed when he cancels or says no to plans. It feels icky, it feels out of control, it feels powerless. So what do you do to get your power back? I can break it down for you in 4 parts. The first part is to take stock and inventory. Actually take the time to go through your dating past and write down everyone who has ever been significant in your dating life. So, you know, answer some simple questions for yourself about your time with each person. How long did it last? Why did it break down? Who broke up with who? What was the biggest challenge, etc. And then take a look at where your dating patterns show up. Do you always in the relationship? Is there frequent abuse, cheating, dishonesty? And what are some of your personal patterns and some of your behaviors that, you know, you, if you could, you would clean up? I mean, I know for me, just the getting angry and being demanding is definitely something that I look back and it was a pattern in all of my relationships. A little bit of anger, a little bit of demanding, sometimes a lot of anger, a lot of demand, which, you know, we all know doesn't actually foster any sort of connection, right? And then, so it's not, after you've done this, it's not time to then make yourself wrong about it. It's, you know, we're all human. We do the best that we can with whatever it is we know at the time, right? So it's time, you know, and sometimes we just don't know very much. And so it's a time to just look at what has existed for you and how it's affected you up until now and how you've developed these patterns that aren't working. And you get a chance to just look at the patterns. What have the patterns been? Have I been, you know, angry in most of my relationships? So, you know, that's something that I want to be aware of and I want to be present to, because if things trigger me and then it causes an avalanche of, you know, communication breakdown, and then I can't work it out, I can't work out my relationship, then that's something to look at. Because how am I ever going to have a long-term relationship if I'm not willing to say, you know, this is a behavior that I have to change or that I have to transform, or that I have to understand, right? So it's all about kind of understanding our old patterns, not to dredge it up and make ourselves wrong, not to feel bad about it, not to cry tears over it because it's over, it's in the past, it doesn't exist anymore, but it's definitely a learning tool. And once we get over that part, the next step to take is to just forgive yourself. It's just go on a forgiving binge. Forgive everybody, forgive your exes, forgive yourself for choosing those exes, forgive your mom and dad if they modeled something for you that looked like something you know, attracted in your life. Forgive your teacher for saying something to you that, you know, you never forgot, and so you took that with you. You know, I had one client who had a teacher that made a nasty comment about her weight, and so she took that with her into her adult life because she was very embarrassed from this comment. And she took that with her into her adult life, you know, a story of feeling like, you know, I don't ever want that to happen to me again. I don't want to be embarrassed and called out about my weight. So she became someone who was very self-deprecating. You know, it's always the comedian that feels the most pain, right? So very self-deprecating, always making fun of herself and using that as sort of a way to keep herself at a distance from other people so that people couldn't hurt her. And that's what we do as human beings. We set up protections for ourselves, and then we grow up, and the 6-year-old who got hurt is still making decisions for us in our adult years, right? Which, you know, is great. We love our little inner child, but our inner child making decisions doesn't have us having strong adult connections. It has us protected from that sort of thing. So the next step, forgiving yourself, and for everyone it will be different. I personally had to forgive myself for making what I thought were bad choices. After I did so, I got a chance to see that my past choices were challenges and opportunities that grew me into a better partner. So rather than just keep beating myself up for being with the wrong people, I was able to just be with that I was with people who were there to challenge me until I got the lesson. And that's the thing too. If there's a lesson to be learned, you will meet the same person over and over again in a different body until you get that lesson. And you'll deal with, a lot of my clients complain about having the same experience with different guys. And you know what? It's not really different guys. You're picking the same emotional issues over and over again, because until you get the lesson, that's just how life works. So then, like I said, everyone who's there in our life is there to grow us. And you might say, well, I don't need to do any forgiving because I don't have any resentments. I've forgiven everyone that I need to. And a lot of us feel like, if we're not walking around mad or in hatred, that, forgiveness work is over. But what we don't realize is that sometimes when someone may have hurt us, or if we've been through something, if you spend years with someone who's cheated on you, you might walk away friendly and be able to part from that relationship with full forgiveness. But how do you deal with, the post-traumatic stress of having been cheated on over and over again? You might still be someone who really does not trust. You might still be someone who's checking phones and, bringing mistrust into your new relationships because that's what you're used to experiencing. And that might have come along long before you were with that person who cheated on you. So it's those kinds of patterns that we just want to get aware of so that we know how to forgive and clean them up. And so part 3 is where, once we get all that forgiveness out of the way, and it takes time. I always say I like for my clients to have a yoga practice because it's the best analogy for how we transform our minds. It's like, when you know something better, you can get aware of it, and then you can transform it. And it's a practice. You might not remember to do it every time. You might get triggered and forget. But it's, when you know that there's a better way and there's a more productive way for you to run your relationships or be in your relationships, you just practice and you practice and you practice until you get closer to mastery. And it's just like, anything. It's like learning a new instrument. I like to use yoga because it's a physical representation. So in part 3, what you get to do is to have a true understanding about how you are not your past, and that you can clean the slate and you can recreate from absolutely nothing, from no past ideas, from no old hurts, from no stories that you've told yourself. You can actually just create something from nothing. And, if you decide you want a specific kind of relationship, this is where you get to actually write a man list that works. So, it's not about his height or his money or any of that stuff, but it's about what you really want to experience for yourself. And it's about accepting and being okay with yourself and not wrong making of yourself enough that you can do that with somebody else, right? So, you can get into your core values, of kindness and fun and friendship and happiness is what you really want to experience in your life. You can experience all of those things, and you can experience it in your love life too, but you got to be willing to give it to yourself first. And you got to be willing to get really clear about, what of those values is important to you so that you can create them every day. So if affection and passion and compassion are very important values, I'm going to want to create them every day. I'm not going to want to hide them, be inauthentic about them so that I can keep my heart safe. I'm going to want to express them and, show them to other people so that I can, generate that in my life and generate that with others. And then people will want to generate it with you too. And so, like I said, there's no such thing as a quick fix or an instant pill. It's like a yoga practice. It's like learning something new. It's about taking the time. And, I have an exercise in part 3 of my program that actually shows you what it feels like to just get aware and make a new choice. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing when we realize that we really do have the power and that we can take responsibility for what we experience in our love lives. There's no training for how we manage our love lives. So you never know, You know, it's like we grow up thinking it's something that just happens to us and that we have no power over it. And so we're the consequence of, you know, whatever's meant to be. And if it's meant to be, it'll work out. If it's not meant to be, it won't work out. And, you know, it's not so much about meant to be. It's about, you know, just being able to get into who you are and acceptance of who you are and being really authentic about that so that whoever you attract can connect with that. Because the worthwhile people and the people that are going to stay will understand your authenticity, they'll love your authenticity, and they won't be able to walk away from it. And those who don't understand it have their own self issues to deal with. When you are 100% yourself, you will run into people who are not there yet and aren't ready for that. And they'll weed themselves out, and it just becomes so much easier. So in part 4, after, you know, doing the first 3 parts of the process, you get to be at a point where you can put it all in action, and it's time to get out there in the pool and swim, right? Because what's the point of learning all these new tools if you're not going to get out there and be dating in action? So part 4 is all about, you know, personalized steps for what you need to do. Wherever you are in your dating life right now, maybe you're not dating anyone at all. Maybe you're dating someone and you have no idea where it's going and they're not committing and you don't know, you know, what to even do about that. Maybe you're dating a lot of people and it's just not coming together. You're just not meeting him. So only you really know what your next personalized steps are going to be. But with your new tools, of having forgiven yourself and cleaned your slate and, you know, being ready to just like be like a baby when it comes to dating. And I don't mean be immature. I mean, like someone who's coming with nothing. Like I'm going to say that fun is what I want to create in my dating life. And so that's what I'm committed to having is fun. I'm not committed to anything else. I'm not committed to attachment, you know, making sure that I marry this guy. I'm not committed to making sure that he knows that I make more money than he does. I'm not committed to, you know, letting him know that my standards are higher than he can reach. What I'm committed to in every dating experience is fun. And that's what I bring to my life. And that's what attracts other people, is getting committed to what I authentically want, right? So if, you know, right now you're stuck in any kind of situation, it's just about going through this process, this 4-part process. So it's, you know, do a relationship inventory, figure out where you need to put forgiveness in place, create something new, something beautiful, something that you want to see in your dating and relationship life. And lastly, get out there and, you know, get in action and be dating and, you know, dealing with your something new, whatever that may be, whether it's fun, it's passion, it's joy, it's connection, it's intimacy, listening, you know, get out there and be willing to share that with people without all the fears of the past. I make it sound so easy. I know, like it's just nothing. But, you know, that's also why it takes time, it takes support, and it takes coaching. And that's what I do. That's what I'm here for. So I've developed programs. One's 30-day, one's a 90-day. And that's what I actually do. I support you through this process. And I have exercises, I have templates, I have, you know, things to write. So what I want to do right now, I don't have, I don't know who's on the YouTube channel. So I'm going to check out the YouTube channel to see if anybody left any comments or any sort of questions. But, you know, if you have any questions about my programs, or if you have any questions about what I'm talking about, if you have any dating questions that you just want to ask right now. Oh, that's my other channel coming in. I'm trying to figure out all this technical stuff too, which is not the easiest for me. But, you know, this is the time. If you do have any questions, it's not required, but, you know, if there is anything that you want to know. If not, I mean, you know, if you have anything that you're thinking of that you want to ask me, go ahead and ask me. If not, that's okay too. But I just want you to know that, you know, what I offer right now, if you do, if you're hearing what I'm saying and it's resonating with you and you're seeing how you could create a new possibility for your dating and your love life, then what you can do is you can apply for, which you should. I think I have all of your emails because you're all from my newsletter. You can apply for a discovery call, and the discovery call is absolutely free, and that will be a chance for you to really, you know, find out about my programs, ask me good questions, and we could really, you know, delve into it. So, you know, please, by all means, definitely click. I'll put up the Google link so that you can actually, let me see, I'm gonna put it in the chat window. I'm gonna put up the Google link for my client application. You can fill out the application, and yeah, and we can have a free discovery call. If, you know, what I've said has resonated with you, I definitely think that we should get on a call and talk. Yeah, there you go. I put the Google link up in the chat window. Feel free to click on that and go ahead and take that questionnaire. And, you know, I'll be calling you and we'll have a great discovery call. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. For anybody who is here on the webinar, I saw some people come in and out, and, you know, it's great. It's like my second webinar ever. So, you know, I'm just so not tech savvy, but I do kind of like this platform. I think it's interesting, and I just want to make sure to be able to get my message out to you. Because I want you all to be living a happy and exciting and a loving love life. I don't want anyone to be fearful of being old and alone, because it's, you know, it doesn't have to be your destiny. It doesn't have to be a death sentence. Like that's just not how it works. You can create something new for your life, and you can invite love in your life, and you can have love and commitment in your life, and it's just a matter of choice. So like I said, do an inventory, clean the slate, forgive yourself, forgive the past, forgive the exes, you know, clear all that up, create something new, create what you really want to experience, and then be willing to put it in action. That's the 4 main steps. So, all right, go ahead, click on that link to, you know, fill in the application, and if we're fit, we can definitely have a discovery call. And I really, truly appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much, and have a great night.